Open your eyes right now and look around the room. You believe you are seeing it exactly as it is, happening in real time. You're not. What you're looking at this second is already old news, a memory dressed up as the present moment, and your brain has been editing it before you even noticed there was anything to edit. That sounds like a small glitch, a rounding error in an otherwise reliable machine. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain is not a camera. It never was. It is a prediction engine running a constant, invisible simulation of the world. And what you call seeing is really just checking that simulation against a thin trickle of incoming light. Most of what fills your visual field right now is not light hitting your eyes. It is your brain's best guess, served up so smoothly you can't tell the difference. Start with something simple. Each of your eyes has a blind spot, a small patch where the optic nerve punches through the retina, leaving a literal hole in your vision. You have had this hole your entire life. Have you ever noticed it? You haven't because your brain doesn't show you a hole. It samples the colors and textures around the gap and paints over it, seamlessly, with material that was never actually there. You're looking at a patch of invented reality right now, and you cannot find the seam, because there is no seam. The neuroscientist Anil Seth has spent years studying this kind of perception, and he describes what your brain does as a controlled hallucination. Not an uncontrolled one, the kind you'd associate with illness or dreaming. A controlled one, constrained by real sensory data, but built, moment to moment, the same way a hallucination is built. Your brain isn't passively receiving the world. It's actively guessing it, then adjusting the guess when reality disagrees. Why would evolution build something so strange? Because light is slow to process and danger is fast. By the time raw visual information travels from your eye to the parts of your brain that consciously register it, a few hundred milliseconds have already passed. That's not much time to a clock. It is an eternity to a predator. So instead of waiting for the past to fully arrive, your brain forecasts the present, fills it with prediction, and only quietly corrects itself when the incoming signal contradicts the forecast. You are always living slightly behind the actual moment, inside a simulation built to feel exactly like now. This is unsettling enough when it's about a blind spot you'll never see. It gets stranger when you realize the same machinery is running your memories. You probably think of memory as something close to a recording. An event happens, your brain files it away, and later you press play and watch it back. That feels true because remembering feels effortless and vivid. But memory researchers have spent decades quietly dismantling that idea. And one name comes up again and again: Elizabeth Loftus. In a famous series of studies, Loftus and her colleagues showed that people could be led to remember entire events that never happened. Not vague impressions, specific, detailed memories, complete with emotion, complete with sensory texture, of things like getting lost in a shopping mall as a child. The participants weren't lying. They weren't even confused in the way you'd expect. They genuinely believed these invented memories were real, because to your brain, a vividly imagined scenario and a remembered one are built from the same materials and stored in overlapping places. Here is the part that should bother you. Every single time you recall a real memory, your brain doesn't retrieve a fixed file. It reconstructs the memory from scratch, using whatever fragments are available, plus whatever your current mood, beliefs, and expectations happen to be that day. Then it restores that newly reconstructed version back into storage, slightly altered, as if it were the original. Do this enough times, across enough years, and the memory you're so sure of has been quietly rewritten dozens of times without your permission. You're not watching old footage. You're listening to a story being retold by someone who keeps improving it each time. And that someone is you. So perception edits the present. Memory edits the past. What about your decisions? The moments that feel the most like you. The ones where you consciously choose to act. In the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran an experiment that still makes people uncomfortable. He asked participants to perform a simple voluntary action, like flicking their wrist, whenever they felt the urge to do so, while he measured the electrical activity in their brain. What he found was a buildup of brain activity, called a readiness potential, that began before participants reported consciously deciding to move. Their brain had already started the process of acting before their conscious mind registered an intention to act. The decision felt instantaneous and self-directed. The data said otherwise. You don't experience the lag, you experience the finished product, a clean, confident sense that you decided right now of your own free will in the exact moment you remember deciding. Your conscious mind isn't necessarily the author of the action. It might just be the press release, issued slightly after the fact, taking credit for a decision that was already underway. Is any of this actually a malfunction? No, and that's the part most people get backwards. None of this is your brain failing at its job. It's your brain succeeding at the only job that ever mattered for survival, which was never perfect accuracy. It was speed and confidence and a seamless feeling of continuity, because a brain that hesitated to double-check every blind spot, every memory, every decision, would have been a brain that froze at the worst possible moment. Evolution didn't build you a truth machine. It built you a fast, convincing storyteller and wired you to trust the story completely, because doubting it constantly would have gotten your ancestors killed. This is why the lie works so well. It isn't trying to deceive you the way a con artist would, slipping in details to manipulate you towards some goal. It has no goal beyond keeping the story moving fast enough that you can act in time. Filling your blind spot doesn't help anyone but you, in this instant, navigating a world that won't wait for your visual cortex to finish processing. Rewriting your memory each time you recall it doesn't help anyone but you, keeping a coherent, livable narrative of who you are instead of a chaotic pile of disconnected fragments. The lie is structural. It's load-bearing. Remove it, and the whole experience of being a continuous self in a continuous world collapses into noise. You can see this play out constantly if you start looking. Two people who lived through the exact same argument will each walk away with a memory that flatters their own side just a little more. Not because either of them is lying, but because both of their brains quietly reconstructed the event in their own favor while it was being filed away. Open an old photo of a trip you remember as miserable and find yourself smiling in every shot, looking genuinely happy, the camera having caught a present moment your memory later edited into something else entirely. Scroll back through old messages and discover you said something completely different from what you would have sworn, with total confidence that you said. None of this is rare. It is what memory does by default to everyone all the time, including you, including right now, including the version of this exact moment you'll be remembering tomorrow. Even the sense of you sitting here, listening, watching, feeling continuous from one second to the next is itself a construction. There is no single place in the brain where a unified self sits and watches the simulation like an audience in a theater. There is only the simulation, running well enough, fast enough, convincingly enough that it generates the feeling of someone being in there to watch it. The feeling is real. The watcher as a fixed, stable thing separate from the process generating it may not be. None of this should make you trust your senses less in any practical sense. You still need to cross the street, recognize a friend's face, remember where you left your keys, and your brain is remarkably good at all of it. But it should change what you think is actually happening. Every single time you open your eyes, every single time you say, "I remember it clearly," every single time you feel certain you chose something of your own free will, in the moment, on purpose. You open your eyes again and look around the same room. It hasn't changed. You have. You now know that what you're looking at was never the present moment delivered to you whole. It was always a story, built moment by moment, edited without your permission, and handed to you a fraction of a second late, dressed up so convincingly as right now that you never thought to ask for proof.